Hello, my name is Adam Richardson and I'm a partner in the HFW Commodities team in Singapore. It's no secret that over the past 12 to 18 months, we've seen a number of very high profile and very costly insolvencies and frauds in the commodities space, particularly in Singapore, but also elsewhere. It's become clear that a number of the bad practices that we've seen over this period have in fact been going on for a number of years. We're talking here about the multiple financing of the same goods. We're talking also about the use of fake documents to procure financing, such as the generation of fake receivables or the presentation of fake documents under letters of credit or sale contracts. We're also talking here about sale and repurchases of goods at a loss in order to generate short-term liquidity. However, it's taken a fairly extreme set of global circumstances in order for some of these practices to be exposed. This has generated a huge amount of litigation, and HFW as a firm has been involved in most of these high-profile insolvencies or near insolvencies. The cases have far-reaching implications, not only for those with direct exposure to the wrongdoers, but for a lot of the other actors in the physical sale chain and in the banking chain. We've seen documents tainted by fraud being presented along the sale contract chain and being presented to banks. We've seen those parties receiving those documents now questioning whether they ought to have made payment against those documents in the first place. We've seen a number of institutions refusing to make payment at all, saying that the documents are fraudulent or saying that the transaction as a whole is tainted by fraud and therefore payment does not fall due. We've assisted clients on both sides of this very difficult area of the law. This is made especially difficult by the fact that these issues typically span multiple jurisdictions. It's often also difficult to pinpoint exactly which documents the cause of action arises under, and it may in fact be multiple documents with different law and jurisdiction clauses, or in the case of letters of credit, very often no law and jurisdiction clause at all. I anticipate that over the next couple of years, we are going to see some sector-defining judgments in a number of key areas. We're going to see leading authorities in relation to letters of credit. We're already seeing cases in the press here of the Singapore High Court hearing claims brought by banks against parties who they say presented fraudulent documents under letters of credit. We ourselves are involved in a number of similar matters in Singapore, Switzerland, London, and elsewhere. We're going to see cases dealing with payment letters of indemnity, cases where banks which made payment against letters of indemnity as opposed to original bills of lading are now looking back at those payment letters of indemnity and questioning whether the statements made were correct. One of the issues we're going to see there is whether a bank who received a letter of indemnity in that capacity in fact has title to sue under them. We're going to see cases dealing with misdelivery claims against owners of vessels bought by banks who hold bills of lading as security for an underlying transaction. Those cases are already taking place. The courts in both England and Singapore have typically been sympathetic to banks holding bills of lading in that capacity. However, we can certainly see that there may be particular fact patterns which would justify the courts revisiting that position. We're at a point where banks are revisiting their exposure to commodities. We've had the news of ABN AMRO pulling out of commodities, likewise BNP's Swiss operation. Other banks are taking a look at their commodities operations and deciding whether they want to scale up or scale down or exit completely. We've heard of Rabobank closing 3 of its trade finance desks. Others are taking different steps. But there's positive action too. We've seen the establishment of a working group of banks in Singapore to come up with solutions for trying to prevent similar events in the future. They've produced a code of best practice for commodities financing. They're looking at the establishment of a trade finance registry in Singapore, a blockchain solution aimed at stopping double financing in the future. So we're seeing positive steps aimed at keeping commodities ahead of these bad practices and aimed at keeping things going. I expect we've not seen the last of the insolvencies nor of the frauds. The truth is that fraud is as old as time, and as the methods of combating fraud and moving things forward evolve, so will the methods of the fraudsters. But it is our job as an industry to always try to stay one step ahead. Thank you.